Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hi, this is Tammy Pantzer, and I am happy to introduce you to Dorothy Kuhn. She helps entrepreneurial-minded people who are tired of feeling stuck and confused and who want to remember and think clearly again so they can confidently get back on track with their business and their life. Dorothy, welcome.
Thank you, and it is wonderful to be here, Tammy.
Thank you. I want you to talk about what happened to you and how you came to create this program to become dementia free.
This is such a dear to my heart topic. And the reason is a few years ago, when I was working and doing everything I could to be the best person I could be, I found myself, instead of being the top performer I had always been, I found myself becoming less and less able to remember, to focus, to be able to problem solve like I always had. And in under a year, Tammy, I went from being a top performer in my organization to having my boss say, "You had better get back your game."
Whoa. So what was going on?
Well, it was just harder and harder to be able to remember things, to focus, I was taking these copious notes, staying up late at night so that I could focus enough to knock out things that had always been easy for me. It was miserable and took way too much time. And it was just getting worse. I was doing everything I could, and it just wasn't enough.
So what was it? What was causing this memory loss or this brain fog issue?
Well, it really did feel like brain fog, head fog, however you want to describe it. It felt miserable. And looking back, once I got it solved, I had to think, what were those early signs and how did the progression go? Because, people are kind of curious, well, what goes on there? And it happens more often than you'd think. So going into that, the things that I found that go into causing dementia, that cause that weakness in the blood-brain barrier, which is what causes most dementias, as it turns out. Now, I'm not talking about the kinds of dementias where, you're a football player and bashing your head around, right?
Right.
That's another kind of self-induced wound. But this is the kind where there is a weakness in the blood-brain barrier, so that things that are necessary and good in your bloodstream and have no business in your brain tissue seep out. And over time, they damage and eventually destroy some and then more of your brain tissue. And of course, our brains run the show of our lives and our businesses and our families. It's pretty important to keep that brain tissue kind of a high integrity set of tissues.
I would say so. I know exactly what you're talking about because I had some brain memory loss issues. But what happened with me, mine turned out that I had a parathyroid tumor. Once that was removed and I started paying attention, my memory, function came back. So it's kind of like a war that we're battling, especially, and again, like you said, some brain issues obviously are from injuries, but then there's other things. It's just about, I guess, our lives and how they are. But you kind of do liken it to a war. Can you talk a little about that?
Oh, I certainly can. This is a war, and war strategy is very important. And the sense in which I use strategy is that you can engage an opponent at a time and place and manner of your choosing. So the question is, as a good scientist, I have this background in science. And so as a good scientist, the question really was, what can I control? Because when you look at the Alzheimer's Association site, which is great, they do wonderful work in the world, and I have a very good relationship with them. But when you look at their site, they say, current medicines cannot cure or stop the progression of Alzheimer's or other dementias, and that there's nothing to be done. They hope to get a cure on the other side of it. And so just a little background here. When that kind of brain fog gets so bad that it's diagnosable as some form of dementia, Alzheimer's is just the most common kind, then it's gone from losing brain tissue and losing neurons to what scientists describe as a firestorm of tissue loss in your brain. And that's really hard to recover from. So the people that I help most are people who are younger, mature but younger, and who have that brain fog because it doesn't get better on its own. So I'm sorry I went around with a little bit of context there. Ask your question one more time.
Oh no, that's perfectly fine. I was just you have some steps that people can take.
Yes.
So if you want to just describe the steps that people can take, and understanding that there are different causes for different brain issues, and that's something that you look at, and what you're addressing is what you found that helped you.
Yes, indeed. And me and other people as well. So the 5 steps are to find what's causing it. It's hard to solve a problem if you don't know what's causing it. And in my business dealings, I've always been clear with my clients at solving their business problems at the root cause. I just took that attitude into this. The things that cause that weakness in the blood-brain barrier for those of us, probably 80% of people who would go into dementia if they left it unchecked, are foods that are like regular parts of the standard American diet that are a low-level inflammatories. They don't cause you to have that, reaction of clutching your throat because you can't breathe, an anaphylactic shock. What they do is just provide a little too much toxic load for your liver and your lungs and, your 5 vital organs that get rid of toxins in your system and get them out. And when you've got too much of a toxin buildup, then it'll show up on your skin, sometimes as some kind of eczema, for example. Well, sometimes it shows up in your brain tissue as well. On your skin, you can see it.
In your brain, you can't.
You can't. And you can't even feel it in your brain. There are no nerve cells there that feel pain. None.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
So next, how do you stop the damage that is happening?
You take that out. So the first is find the causes. I think I misstated that. It's find the causes first. You want to find out what to do, and then take those triggers out. For most people, those are foods or other environmental toxins. For example, mercury or poisons can really cause that. And when you find what that cause is and take it out, then you're stopping the damage. In the case of foods, there are a handful of foods that are pretty common, but I teach people how to test for that so that they can find what's their kryptonite, so to speak.
So what is a common food that could cause this issue?
Well, the 3 most common are milk, soy, and gluten. You can remember that with MSG. And by the way, leave out the MSG as well, because the G in that little dash of stuff stands for glutamate.
Ah, okay. So MSG. So milk,
soy,
gluten. And gluten. And a lot of women especially were told to replace milk with soy. So they just replaced something with something that really wasn't good for them.
Yeah,
So,
that's true. And not only that, I mean, people think of soy as a health food. It's really not, particularly for women, because in feminine bodies, it creates phytoestrogens, which are precursors to breast cancer. So you
mm.
want to stay away from soy anyway. And that includes soy oil, which is everywhere. You buy salad dressing at the store or
Oh,
vegetable oil, it's got soy in it.
yeah,
So
soybean oil.
yeah,
So,
stay away from that stuff. Soy solids, it's very cheap and easy, and almost all of it's GMO anyway. And people have various views on GMO, but my view is it cannot help you.
I know that they're starting to say that it does a lot of damage. So once you know your causes and you help people discover how to find the causes for them,
Hmm.
then you want to avoid the causes, um, and then you also say that you want to activate your brain. What does that mean?
Oh, activating the brain is so simple and easy to do. Do we live in a culture that sits a lot?
Well, I know I sit a lot and I sometimes sit so long that I forget how long I've been sitting and I get up and I'm stiff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's silly how much we sit, and we've got these bodies. They are made to move. So getting up and doing particularly cross lateral, there are a whole variety of movements that people can do, and what I teach is how to choose the ones that are going to fit in your life and do you the most good. And these are cross lateral movements, and some of them you can do while sitting, which is great, particularly if you're in a boring meeting. You can take your eyes and keep your head just looking ahead at the boss. He's looking around at other people, and you can take your eyes and shoot them out to the right and then shoot them out to the left and go back and forth a few times for about a minute. It'll take him that long or her that long to get around to you again. And make sure that and that'll activate your brain tremendously, because there's no organ in the body that takes in more information per moment than your eyes.
Oh, wow. So your eyes are something that you get a lot of information, and then you were talking about doing the cross crawl. I think, well, that's how I think of it,
Yes.
when just simple exercises that
Simple
can,
movements like that. Like, think of any movement that is similar to how a baby crawls.
okay.
When you go for a walk, swing your arms some. When you're at the gym, hop on not the treadmill, but the elliptical.
Okay. Yeah, I like the elliptical.
Yeah,
S-
because your
So,
arms are moving. It's that cross lateral movement, very activating for the brain.
so,
And 10 minutes, two or three times a day, and you're good.
so activate your brain by doing some nice physical exercises, and it doesn't have to be anything complicated, just simple move your body. And then you talk about the air war, which is more about what's between your ears. Talk about that.
Oh gosh, this is so important. When you've taken some foods out of your diet, which is a pretty common method that people find really works well in their lives. So depending on what your cause is, so pretty common causes, people will be taking out foods, and then they're adding that movement, and they've made a few changes in their lives, and they'll come to a point pretty typically where they've just kind of hit the wall, like, I cannot do this. And for me, it was the day I realized I would never have gelato again. Ouch. And it was just not a good day. I had a big pity party, and by the end of that day I thought, I'm not going to, live my life with head fog that could well go into dementia. My own father had passed away with dementia at this point. And so when it's in the family, you just know you're at greater risk. And when you've got head fog, you're thinking, that train is coming for me. I better do something.
Right.
Anyway, so I just asked myself at the end of the day, what if there was something that I could have that was even better? So That's a great question to ask when you hit those those places in life where you bump up against your tolerance for change.
So you
And I did. The very next day, I went out and looked, and there was something at I have a natural grocers in my neighborhood. Bam, done. Now, it has a lot of sugar in it, so I don't eat a lot of it because sugar is one of those things that's not good for brains. Fats, healthy fats, there are some good fat choices. They're really great for brains.
So a healthy fat choice would be what type of fat, for example?
Like a top quality organic olive oil or coconut oil, really great for the brain.
I hear a lot of stuff about coconut oil all over for all kinds of things. It's starting a lot of people are recognizing coconut oil for what its properties are. And
Yeah.
I mean, think about coconut being a staple of diets in many cultures that have it. That's very interesting.
Yeah, and the scientific reason is, excuse me, I'm going to take a sip here. Pardon me. It's spring in Texas, you know. Anyway, the scientific reason is that coconut oil is metabolized through the liver, and so it has different pathways into your system, and every brain needs fat. We live in this culture of low fat, and the fats that we do get as a part of the standard American diet, or SAD, SAD.
Standard American diet is sad.
It is sad.
So once we start, obviously it's all about paying attention and, changing what we eat, change seems to be the key word here. But obviously as you change, you're going to get to feel better. But what do you do about the people around you who want to be supportive and may or may not be? What do you do to get people to understand that you're literally making these changes so that you can live a better life?
So two things are the people that you live with in your home or people who you're around frequently. That's one set. And then the people that are just the folks you run into in life. So let's take the last group first. If I'm out at a restaurant, those people, they want to make sure that you're happy, you get what you want and you need. And so I'll just kind of lean over to them and look out of the corner of my eye and say, my doctor has got me on this crazy diet. But guess what? It works.
I like it.
Yeah, give them a little twinkle in the eye and they are automatically on board. And I use a similar thing with family, only in addition to that, I partner with them to figure out what are side steps that we can all make. Because, it's always good to be, when you're in a family situation, to be eating things that other people at the table can eat.
Right.
And I'll have things that they can eat that I can't. But, it's a balance so that everybody's got, a well-balanced meal that serves them. Because after all, why would you eat something that doesn't serve you?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've learned to be able as well to appreciate foods that I can't eat for their visual beauty, for the wonderful aroma, and for the lovely presentation and the work that somebody has put into it. So there are things to appreciate about a dish that you'll never put in your mouth that you don't need to taste to be able to appreciate.
I think that's good advice. So appreciate it visually and smell it, just don't eat it.
Right. Because for me, and I'll say to myself, poison, poison, poison. It's not poison to smell it, but it would be poison to eat it for me.
Mm-hmm.
And if other people eat that stuff, I don't have any judgment. They're on their own journey. And people solve a problem that is important to them to solve in their life now.
Mm-hmm. So how do we create a supportive surrounding in our battle to think straight and to make our brains healthy so that we can, live longer into, we know that most of us are going to live longer than ever, and we certainly want to be able to appreciate it. So how do we create this supportive surrounding?
Oh, the supportive surroundings are really important because when you've been having head fog, so just a touch of background here, head fog is what happens. It takes 20 to 30 years for dementia to develop to the point where it's really noticeable with those classic symptoms of forgetting conversations and not being able to figure things out and not knowing where you are in your own town, right?
Right.
And since it takes 20 to 30 years, the things that I noticed were things that happened beforehand that are kind of manageable but pretty miserable. And so when you've got those things, you've got time to get that turned around. And when you've got that, you definitely want not only to stop that damage and get it turned around while you've still got time, but the supportive surroundings are the purpose of that is to not overstimulate a brain that has had some damage, but not too much. And do we live in the most overstimulated time in human history? Yeah, we really do. And when your brain is healing, you want to take out things like, I'm sitting in a room where the lighting is dim. I've just got the curtains pulled back. It's a beautiful morning here. And I've taken out the overhead lights, or the ones that are left. I don't turn them on most often. Occasionally I do, but not much. And at night, I'll turn off the lights and turn off all the electronics and the TV an hour before it's time to go to bed. I make sure and get enough rest. Oh, here's another really important thing that's related both to supportive surroundings and to stopping the damage, which is to get, how we're told to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep?
Yes.
Well, most people will think to themselves, I don't know why we need to sleep as human beings, but I'm not going to sleep that much. That's, I've got other things to do. The reason we sleep is to take out the trash in our heads. In our bodies, from the neck down, we have this lovely take out the trash system, cellular trash, because every cell, consumes energy and then has some waste product. And that's our lymphatic system. So lymphatic. And that lymphatic system does not exist in your head. There's something else, and that something else works only when you're sleeping.
So we need an adequate amount of sleep for our own health. And I think you're absolutely right. Most people don't get enough sleep, high quality sleep, because they normally have electronics, and especially now with cell phones, and people take their phones to bed with them, and and they get interrupted with TV and everything. So
oh yes, and it's just another way in which we do self-inflicted wounds.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So why do you think so what is your advice to people if they have some of these issues? Like, when is a good time to start looking at some of the issues that you brought up today, and maybe give a couple tips about maybe recap a little bit about what you said? So there's, if you are experiencing, the beginning things like, oh, I don't remember where I put my keys, or why did I walk into the room? I mean, some of that's probably normal, but it sounds like as we get older, if we stop and do some preliminary things, we can stop this in its tracks.
Oh, yes. And you want to take action before the tissue damage turns into that firestorm, that we talked about. So the advice really is, these are steps that are simple. People, on the one hand, people can do them on their own, but on the other hand, it took me years to figure out all of this stuff. And when you're having those symptoms, fogginess in the head, it takes you longer to figure things out now. You're not remembering things that other people remember, and it's not like they're being mean to you. They've got your best interest at heart, They're just like looking at you like, you do remember this, don't you? And you don't. And, when my boss had that, you better get step up your game here, gal, talk with me. That was after a year, but it continued to get worse for a couple more years while I was figuring all this stuff out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And you don't want it to get worse for a couple years. Sometimes, another year is all you've got before it's in a diagnosable condition. And you can't tell that in advance. So taking quick action is really important. And that's part of what I help people do. The reason they want to do that is because they really want to get their lives back and their future back.
Yeah, I can see that. So if somebody wants to learn more about you and how to live dementia free, where do they go?
They go to livedementiafree.com.
And what can they find there?
They'll find a short video from me, and I'll send them early warning signs, how to tell the difference between a normal senior moment and your brain having those non-normal symptoms, signs of dementia. And fortunately, there are lots of signs that pop up before you're diagnosable. So there's that window where you can do something. And they get all kinds of free things by email from, once or twice a week, and just to help them make sure that they're really on track. And when things are at a point where they're ready to take action, then, the memory fitness program is just really wonderful and very effective. I just finished a class yesterday, and they got tremendous results.
Great. Well, Dorothy, thank you so much for educating us about this issue, because I learned a lot of different things about brain health and about brain fog and things that I could do. And obviously it's not anything that's difficult to do. It's just something that you have to be aware of. So thanks a lot. I really appreciate you coming on the show today.
It's a delight to be with you. I'm so glad to meet you and see all the things that we have in common. And caring about people and making sure they can be their best is definitely one.
This is Tammy Patzer. Go make it a great day.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.